In the late spring of 2016, an elite computer scientist and video game pioneer climbed the steps of a high-security tech facility overlooking the fog-laden waters of Sausalito, California. His name was Dr. Rizwan Virk, an alumnus of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a Stanford MBA, and an investor deep within the inner circles of Silicon Valley. He was not a conspiracy theorist, nor was he a man prone to wild, unscientific fantasies. He was an engineer of code, a builder of digital frameworks, and a master of complex software structures. But what occurred inside that room would permanently dismantle his understanding of human existence, setting him on a decades-long journey down a rabbit hole from which there is no escape. The lab technicians handed him a prototype virtual reality headset, a massive, heavy generating unit that creators in the industry jokingly referred to as a toaster on the face. Thick, heavy cables dangled from the ceiling like a mechanical web, anchoring his senses to a powerful, high-performance mainframe computer running advanced graphics software. The moment the lenses covered his eyes, the physical world vanished entirely. He was standing in a hyper-realistic digital void. In front of him sat a perfectly rendered table tennis setup. On the other side stood an artificial opponent, a primitive avatar built from basic geometric shapes, lines, and data points. He picked up the physical controllers, took his stance, and began to play. What happened next was not just a display of good technology. It was a profound psychological hacking of the human nervous system. The physics engine was flawless. There was no latency, no perceptible delay, and no digital stutter. Every micro-movement of his physical hand was translated into the digital simulation with absolute, terrifying precision. If he swung his arm fast, the digital ball sliced across the virtual table with matching velocity. For several uninterrupted minutes, his biological brain completely accepted the illusion. The fake reality was so total, so absolute, that when the rally ended, Rizwan did something completely instinctive. He reached out his arm to lean his physical weight against the edge of the virtual table to rest. But there was no table. He was standing in a completely empty concrete room. The physical controller slipped from his hand against the floor as his body plummeted forward into empty space, completely losing its balance. In that split second of terrifying biological disorientation, a chilling realization struck him like a physical blow. He realized that our technology was only decades old. If a relatively primitive consumer headset could completely trick the human brain into falling over a non-existent table, how long would it take for our species to build a simulation that was completely flawless? A simulation where you don't just forget it is a game for a fraction of a second, but you forget for an hour, a day, a year, an entire human lifetime? This terrifying realization forced him to step back and look at the entire framework of human history, modern computation, and quantum mechanics. He realized that we are approaching a historical tipping point, a moment known as the simulation point. This is a technological singularity where virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and computation become completely indistinguishable from the physical world. Most people think of the singularity as the moment artificial intelligence becomes smarter than humans, a concept popularized by science fiction films depicting hostile networks turning against their creators. But the simulation point is far more insidious. It is the moment we achieve the capability to generate entire universes filled with conscious, self-aware entities who have no idea they are living inside a digital cage. Mainstream materialist scientists will immediately object. They will argue that simulating an entire universe down to the subatomic level is an absolute mathematical impossibility. They look at the cosmos through the rigid lens of classical physics, calculating that to track every single atom, every rock, every star, and every cell in the human body simultaneously, you would need a physical computer larger than the universe itself. But they are making a fundamental mistake. They are looking at reality like classical physicists, not like advanced computer scientists. In the world of high-end game architecture, you never simulate everything at once. You don't need to. If you are playing an expansive, open-world game like World of Warcraft or a massive shooter like Fortnite, the game engine does not waste precious processing power rendering a castle that is sitting miles away behind a mountain ridge. It does not calculate the leaves on a tree in a forest your avatar has not yet visited. The castle and the forest do not exist as physical graphics until your character approaches them. They exist only as passive lines of compressed text on a storage drive. In computer science, this foundational optimization technique is known as dynamic rendering, lazy loading, and lazy evaluation. The game engine follows a strict rule: only render that which is actively observed by the player. The absolute millisecond your avatar turns its back on a room, the rendering engine purges that room from the active graphics memory to conserve processing power. The assets dissolve back into pure information, lying dormant in the dark, waiting for the player to look back. Now, look around the room you are sitting in right now. Touch the wall, look at the objects on your desk, feel the weight of your own body. What if the universe operates under the exact same cosmic optimization code? What if the space behind your head right now does not exist as physical matter? What if the cosmic engine only constructs the physical properties of your reality at the exact microsecond your conscious eyes turn to observe it? The moment you leave a room or close your eyes, does the universe stop rendering your reality to save processing power? For generations, this was treated as a bizarre philosophical thought experiment. But today, the most brilliant minds in quantum physics are discovering that this is exactly how our physical world behaves at the deepest level of the source code. This brings us to the most terrifying junction in modern science: the realization that the anomalies discovered in quantum mechanics are not features of a physical world, but glitches and optimization protocols of a massive computational simulation. For over 100 years, traditional materialist physics has been haunted by a ghost it cannot exorcise, a phenomenon known as the observer effect. Consider the famous double-slit experiment, a foundational pillar of modern quantum physics. When scientists fire subatomic particles of light, or photons, through two narrow slits in a barrier without actively measuring them, the particles behave like fluid waves. They pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with themselves and creating a wave pattern on the target screen behind the barrier. They exist in what physicists call a state of quantum superposition, a mathematical cloud of pure, multiple probabilities where the particle is essentially everywhere and nowhere at the exact same time. But the absolute microsecond that scientists place a physical measurement device or a conscious observer at the slits to track exactly which opening the particle passes through, reality violently changes. The wave function instantly collapses. The mathematical probability cloud vanishes into thin air, and the light freezes into a single, solid physical point. The particle behaves strictly like a classical piece of solid matter, choosing one path and leaving two distinct, parallel lines on the screen. For a century, scientists have scrambled to explain why the act of conscious observation forces a wave of infinite possibilities to collapse into a single physical reality. They invented complex vocabulary and mathematical formulas to cover up a deeply uncomfortable truth. But if you look at this experiment through the lens of a game developer, the miracle disappears, replaced by pure algorithmic logic. The universe is practicing lazy evaluation. The cosmic computer refuses to execute the expensive, heavy calculation of tracking a solid particle's exact position in space until a conscious player forces the system to display the asset. It is far more computationally efficient to maintain the universe as a wave function of abstract probabilities until the data is requested by an observer. Solid matter is an illusion that is only generated on demand to save computational memory. This is not a theory. It is a mathematical reality that has been proven in laboratories over and over again. The universe operates exactly like a 3D game engine, drawing the pixels only when the camera angle requires them. But the simulation does not just optimize space, it optimizes time. The legendary physicist John Wheeler, a colleague of Albert Einstein at Princeton and the PhD supervisor of Richard Feynman, proposed a radical thought experiment known as the cosmic delayed choice experiment. Wheeler wanted to know what would happen if the choice to observe a particle was delayed until after the particle had already made its journey. Decades later, in 2017, a team of international scientists officially took Wheeler's experiment into deep space, utilizing high-tech satellites orbiting thousands of miles above the Earth. They targeted photons fired from a distant cosmic source billions of light years away. On its journey to Earth, the light encountered a massive gravitational object, like a galaxy or a black hole, forcing it to make a decision: go left or go right. According to classical physics, that choice was made billions of years ago, long before the first human being ever walked the face of the Earth. But the satellite experiment revealed something that completely shatters our understanding of linear time. When the scientists adjusted the satellite telescope to measure which side the light traveled around, the photon behaved as if it had chosen one specific path billions of years ago. But if they left the telescope unadjusted, the light behaved as a wave, passing around both sides of the galaxy simultaneously. The terrifying implication is undeniable. The choice made by a scientist in a laboratory today literally retroactively constructs the history of a particle that traveled billions of years in the past. Time is not a straight, unyielding line moving from past to future. Time is a dynamic database being loaded on demand. The past is not fixed. It is an unrendered archive that is constantly being filled in, adjusted, and materialized based entirely on the observations made in the present moment. If time is a dynamic database inside a running simulation, then it stands to reason that the program can be rerun, variables can be changed, and separate iterations of the simulation can be merged. This is where we encounter the dark, prophetic work of visionary science fiction author Philip K. Dick. In 1977, long before the invention of modern virtual reality or advanced computing, Dick stood before a bewildered, silent audience of science fiction enthusiasts in Metz, France. He looked out at the room and delivered a chilling address that many dismissed as the ramblings of a paranoid mind. He stated with absolute conviction, "We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs." Dick claimed that he did not write fiction. He wrote recovered memories. He insisted that he possessed vivid, terrifyingly detailed recollections of an alternate timeline, a dark, parallel history where World War II had ended with the Axis powers conquering and dividing the United States into an oppressive police state. He believed that the supreme programmers of our reality routinely adjust variables in the master code, rewinding the simulation to previous save points to alter historical trajectories and avoid global catastrophes. He warned that human beings would experience these systematic code rewrites as a profound sense of reliving the exact same moments, a phenomenon we casually dismiss as déjà vu, or what the modern world now calls the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is often ridiculed by mainstream psychologists as a simple quirk of human memory, a collective confabulation where people misremember historical facts. They tell us it is perfectly normal for millions of completely unrelated individuals across the globe to share the exact same highly specific false memories. They tell us it is a coincidence that millions vividly remember Nelson Mandela dying in a dark prison cell in the 1980s, recalling the exact televised broadcast of his massive funeral long before he emerged in our current timeline to become the president of South Africa. They tell us it is faulty memory when millions of people swear they watched the iconic James Bond film Moonraker and laughed at the classic comedic joke where the giant metal-toothed villain Jaws falls in love with a small pig-tailed girl named Dolly. A joke that only makes sense because when she smiles back at him, she reveals a massive set of shiny metal braces on her teeth. Yet, if you look at the physical footage of that film today, Dolly's teeth are completely bare, her braces erased from history. Look at the famous marble statue Rodin's The Thinker. Across the internet, there are thousands of archival photographs of tourists standing directly next to the physical statue, posing for the camera. But look closer at their bodies. In hundreds of these images, the tourists are pressing their hands firmly against their foreheads in a tight fist, mimicking what they believe the statue is doing. Yet the physical statue right next to them shows the figure's hand resting quietly under its chin. How do millions of people look directly at a physical object, pose to copy it, and collectively generate the exact same incorrect posture? In a materialist world, this makes no sense. But in a simulated multiverse, these anomalies are the digital residue of a database merge. When the architects of our simulation alter a critical variable in the master script to change a historical outcome, the physical assets in the world change instantly. The code of the statue rewrite updates seamlessly. The film frames of Moonraker adjust flawlessly across all servers. But the conscious minds of the human players, the individual entities plugged into the simulation, frequently retain the raw original source code of the old timeline. The physical world updates, but our internal memory cache fails to clear, leaving us with a haunting collective recollection of a history that technically no longer exists. If our reality is an artificial simulation running on a quantum computational architecture, it forces us to confront the ultimate terrifying question. Who is running the program, and what is the final endgame? Why construct a universe filled with immense beauty, but marred by unimaginable human suffering, devastating diseases, and global wars? The answer lies in understanding why we, as humans, build simulations and play video games. We run simulations to test variables, to predict weather patterns, to model economic crashes, and to discover the most favorable outcome of a complex problem without risking real-world assets. The grand programmer may be running billions of parallel iterations of Earth to find the one timeline where humanity does not completely self-destruct. But at an individual level, why do we play video games? For entertainment, for adventure, and to experience realities that are completely impossible in our ordinary world. We log into games to fight dragons, to experience hardships, and to test our skills against harsh environments. We don't play games where everything is perfect because perfection breeds absolute boredom. What if our souls, our true conscious identities, exist entirely outside this digital matrix? What if we are advanced players who willingly strapped ourselves into a highly immersive, full-body virtual reality suit, consciously choosing to wipe our memories before logging in, just to experience the raw, unvarnished drama of a mortal human life? When the iconic film critic Roger Ebert lay on his deathbed, ravaged by terminal cancer and completely unable to speak, he suddenly looked at his wife with an expression of intense clarity. He wrote a note, and right before he closed his eyes for the last time, he managed to utter a final, chilling statement that left his family stunned. He said, "Oh my God, it's all a big hoax." He was not talking about his career, nor was he talking about a medical mistake. He had caught a glimpse behind the rendering engine. He realized that the solid, terrifying, painful universe we fight so hard to survive is nothing more than a grand artificial projection. For thousands of years, the most ancient spiritual traditions on Earth have been screaming this exact same warning. In the ancient Sanskrit texts of India, sages wrote extensively about Maya, the grand cosmic illusion, a divine sleight of hand designed to fool human consciousness into believing that the physical world possesses inherent reality. The Buddha spent his entire existence teaching that our world is a passing dream, a mere reflection in a perfectly clear mirror, entirely devoid of independent substance. Shakespeare wrote that all the world is a stage and we are merely players. Ancient mysticism, bleeding-edge quantum mechanics, and modern video game architecture are not conflicting systems of thought. They are simply three entirely different languages trying to describe the exact same uncomfortable truth. Our universe is not built of physical matter. It is rendered out of pure information. Every rock, every star, every tear you shed, and every breath you take is a calculated bit of data flowing through a cosmic processor. We are trapped inside a digital maze, walking through rooms that construct themselves only when we look, and dissolving back into the void the moment we turn away. Look closely at the edges of your world. Watch the shadows, track the synchronicities, and question the fabric of your time. Because if you look hard enough into the darkness of the matrix, you might just see the source code blinking back at you. This is Vantage Elite, signing off.